because courage says you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to know why this is important to you. And you just need to know what is the first step to take. That's it. And so with courage, with that clarity of purpose, we take that first step and then the next step and then the next step and then the next step. And the more steps we take, confidence catches up and confidence builds over time. But courage is what comes first.
Share with us like some of the misconceptions that people have about mindfulness, especially in high performance environments where targets needs to be achieved so quickly and there is a lot of hustle bustle kind of thing, right?
But one thing I can tell you with complete confidence is that mindfulness doesn't dull ambition, it fuels ambition. Because when you infuse that much more meaning and that much more purpose into everything that you are doing, by definition, you are going to be that much more focused. You're going to be that much more energized.
So, Bhavna, you have also done significant amount of work in terms of going through the ancient wisdom and blending it with the current practices, right? So, talk to us about how the ancient wisdom aligns with modern neuroscience when it comes to decision making.
Well, I'm glad you're asking me about decision making, Naveen, because especially in today's world, when there's so many challenges coming at us all the time, especially for leaders, the quality of your decisions is everything. And fortunately, this is where ancient wisdom and neuroscience are on the same page. Because if there's one thing that all ancient wisdom traditions speak to, whether it is Stoicism or Buddhism or take any ancient tradition, they all tout the benefits of.
Let's talk about Shenomics. So, what differentiates Shenomics from other women-centric leadership platforms? So, folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording. And we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak. And here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. And we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, we are joined by Bhavna Toor. She is a global mindful leadership coach and author of The Conscious Choice. And she's also the founder and CEO of Shenomics. And after leaving a high profile Wall Street career, she has dedicated her life to helping individuals and organizations lead with authenticity, purpose, and presence. And she has impacted over 100,000 women worldwide. In fact, she was named a LinkedIn top voice for gender equity, and Bhavna brings a rare blend of ancient wisdom and modern leadership to the global stage. So we are proud and humbled to have her as a guest today. So Bhavna, first things first, why should somebody tune into our episode today and spend their valuable time with us?
First of all, Naveen, thank you so much for having me as a guest on The Guiding Voice. It's really a pleasure to be here today. And for all those of you who have dialed in and are listening to us, here is what I want to say to you. I think we're living in a world right now where things are just moving at breakneck speed, and so many of us are unconsciously living on autopilot. We are burnt out, we are disconnected, and many of us are not even sure if the choices that we're making are truly our own or not. And so I hope this conversation will be a chance for all of you to pause and really explore what it means for you to live and lead with more clarity and intention.
Amazing. I think it is a need of the hour. Everybody is rushing and trying to make a difference and without pausing. And it is an important conversation. So, folks, today we are going to discuss about the conscious choice. And Bhavna Toor is going to walk us through leading with presence and purpose. And before we get started, here is an exciting twist as always. Let us tickle our guest's brain first. So, Bhavna, get ready for a rapid fire round of some crazy questions. Okay, I'll mention a few, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. If you're ready, let's get there.
Hello, I'm Steve Ahern, one of the judges of the Asia Podcast Awards. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that you're listening to an award-winning podcast. This podcast won its category in the 2024 Podcast Awards, so you know you're listening to quality. Enjoy your listening experience, and congratulations to the team who created this award-winning podcast for you.
Let's go.
All right, here comes my first question. A book that changed your life.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I think that is one book that really made me pause and think about what it means to live and lead with more awareness.
I'll add it to my reading list. The Untethered Soul. Awesome. And can you describe Wall Street in just one word?
Intense.
So when you say intense, I look at the algorithm and the competition that takes place in terms of maintaining those many stocks, details and all, right? Yeah. All right. So one daily ritual you never skip.
My morning routine, and in particular, stillness in the morning, whether that is through meditation, through breath work, or through journaling, but some kind of practice that allows me to just settle into stillness first thing in the day.
So my next one is like, do you prefer meditation or music for grounding?
Meditation, of course, is my preferred choice because meditation can take so many different forms. Although I do find music very calming as well. But first thing in the day, I like to begin with meditation.
Awesome. And a women leader you would want to have coffee with?
A woman leader I would want to have coffee with. Lately, one woman that I'm completely so much in awe of, and I think I could learn so much from, is Leena Nair, who is the CEO of Chanel. And her success has just been remarkable. I would love to sit down and chat with her.
She's on my wish list for TGV podcast.
I hope you manage to get her. That would be incredible.
I'm hopeful of it. It will happen soon. And what's more powerful, like silence or speech?
Silence.
Okay. Your leadership mantra in 3 words.
Presence, purpose, impact.
All right. So this question is more on the Indian context. Okay. So mindfulness in traffic. How do you stay calm?
How do you stay calm when you are stuck in traffic? By the way, this is something I'm so familiar with because before Singapore, I used to live in Bangalore. So this was my reality most days of the year. For me, one thing that helped, two things that I would really use my time in traffic for. One is one of my biggest strengths and things that really energizes me is love of learning. So I would always have my earphones plugged in and I would always be either listening to an audiobook or a podcast. And it's such a wonderful way to spend your time in the car. You don't even think about what's happening around you or what kind of traffic you're stuck in. That's one. The second thing that I found very meaningful, a meaningful way to spend my time while stuck in the car is picking up the phone and calling someone I haven't connected with in a while, whether it's my family, my friends. It's just such a beautiful way to spend that time instead of being frustrated and complaining about what's happening around you.
Ditto here. The same is what I do. All right. And Bhavna, LinkedIn headline, if you had to make your LinkedIn headline funny, right? What would you write?
A recovering perfectionist turned mindful rebel.
Interesting. All right. Here comes the next one. The most mindful moment of your day.
Not a single moment, but I would say the most mindful moments of my day are each time I pause, I intentionally and consciously pause just to take a few deep breaths. I try to do this at the top of every hour I don't always remember to do this, but even just 3 deep breaths at the beginning of every hour are a beautiful way to ground yourself and come into presence.
Excellent. I loved all your responses in the first rapid fire round. Yes, you heard it right. There is one more rapid fire round towards the end of the episode. So,
Uh-oh.
and
Thank you for giving me the heads up. I'll be mentally prepared and looking out for that.
no, it will be very easy for you given the responses that you have given to the first rapid fire. I think second one will be a easy cakewalk kind of thing.
All
All right.
right.
So, yeah.
No
So, Bhavna, first of all, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, and thank you so much for being part of our journey. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. And I'm so happy to be in conversation with you about a topic that I know can really make a meaningful difference to the lives of many.
Absolutely. All right. So, let's get the ball rolling with the standard question like, who is your guiding voice?
So I want to give you a two-part answer, Naveen.
Yeah.
Growing up, my biggest guiding voice they were actually two voices, and those would be my parents. I know we all love our parents, but for me in particular, my parents, I owe so much gratitude to the way my parents raised me, what they role modeled for me in terms of love and kindness and living with generosity and living with a purpose, a larger purpose, where you're always asking yourself how you can use your life for the greater good. These are all things that I learned by just watching my parents. So they were my first and primary guiding voice. And now, I would say, especially over the last decade that I've been practicing mindfulness, I have consciously, Naveen, constructed or built an inner voice that serves as my guiding light. It is a voice that is rooted in wisdom and a lot of compassion. And this is the voice that I often turn to whenever I need guidance, and it has never let me down.
Excellent. All right. So, Bhavna, talk to us about your success mantra, as in top three things that have contributed to your success so far.
If I look at whatever success I've had so far, I would say there are three things that there are definitely three things that I can point to. The first is what we just spoke of, being attuned to that inner voice, being in touch with your inner wisdom, your intuition. And this is the voice that I first connected with and listened to when I left Wall Street more than a decade ago and decided to take my life in a different direction. And I'm so glad I made that decision, because that is the one decision that put me on a path eventually to living and leading more consciously. So the first, for sure, I would say, is being in touch with listening and honoring your inner voice and intuition. The second thing that I would say, which I'm a big believer of, and I talk a lot about, whether it's in my content or in our programs, is consciously living life in alignment with your values. So, really taking the time to ask yourself, what is most important to me? And at every step, at every choice, at every decision, asking yourself if you are living in alignment with those values. For example, for me, courage has been a core value, and it's been this conscious decision to always pick courage over comfort that allowed me to leave Wall Street, that allowed me to found Shenomics, which is a company I've been running for the last year. That is what even allowed me to write my book, The Conscious Choice, and so many other examples that I can point to. But each decision was made possible because I was always asking myself, how can I honor courage in this moment and with this choice? Um, and the third thing, Naveen, I would say is, and this didn't come to me right away either, it's something I've learned over time, is that none of us have to figure it out all by ourselves. There are so many incredible, wise people around us. So for me, that's meant being comfortable with asking for help. And so I have intentionally and consciously surrounded myself with people, with colleagues, with mentors whom I can turn to for help, for advice. And their role in my journey has been absolutely incredible and something I'm very, very grateful for.
Excellent. All right. So after having a high fly career with Wall Street and you embarked on your own entrepreneurial journey, now share with us the toughest lessons that you have learned in founding this Shenomics and running it successfully.
Yes, it's definitely been quite a journey and lots of tough lessons along the way. No question, no question. Entrepreneurship in particular is not a cakewalk. Here is what I would say to you, Naveen, that I hope can be of some comfort to anyone who's already on the entrepreneurial path or even thinking about embarking on it or anything similar, is that entrepreneurship, I think the way to succeed with it is to recognize that it is a long game. It is a long game. And what I mean by that is um, you need to allow yourself, give yourself the grace of patience more than anything else in order to succeed with any long term goal or dream that you might have. For many of us, I know we get restless because we have so many hopes and goals, and there's so many things that we want to accomplish. But what I've realized is great things take time, and great things will happen on their own timeline. You cannot rush them. You need to just keep showing up day after day after day, each day asking yourself, how can I do my part? How can I show up as my best? And then leave the results, leave the outcome, leave the fruits of your action, as we say in ancient Indian wisdom as well, to the universe. And what I've seen when I function in this way, when I'm just keeping my eyes and my energy entirely on what is within my control, leaving the rest to the forces that may be, I found somehow that has actually become the recipe for success, for fulfillment, for happiness, and just feeling a lot of peace on this journey. Instead of feeling restless that things are not moving ahead as I would like. I think Lao Tzu, a wonderful ancient philosopher, had once said, "Nature doesn't hurry, yet everything is accomplished." And I think there's so much wisdom in that. And I think if we apply that to our life as well, that we cannot force the results, we cannot force the outcome. But if we keep showing up and doing our part, everything will be accomplished and you will grow as a result.
Awesome. I love the way you have put it. Great things take time, and all we have to do is showing up and do our part. And in fact, it resonates very well with my philosophy as well in terms of building the guiding voice platform. I keep telling my team also, in case if you're poised for greater results, needs patience, it needs consistency, perseverance, and also totally resonate with you.
Yeah.
And now let's take a step back. And you left a successful Wall Street career again to start a mindful leadership revolution. So tell me about the defining moment that led to this pivot, because it's a dramatic shift, right? You change your path
Yeah.
completely.
Yes, yes. So I would say, Naveen, there were two things that played a role. One was just this growing uneasiness inside of me that kept this voice that kept growing louder and louder, which kept questioning me if I was on the right path. Somehow things just felt like they felt off, and I wasn't sure if this is my path. So one was this growing restlessness, but if there was a singular moment that really brought everything to focus, I would say there was this one interview, especially towards the end of business school, where my interviewer turned to me and asked me, Bhavna, tell me about a time you failed and what you learned from that. Um, Now you would think a standard interview question, I should have completely gone prepared to answer that. But in that moment, I just paused, I froze, I did not have a single answer. And I left that interview. I remember feeling so dejected. And after that began what I like to call my existential crisis, because for days and weeks after that, I reflected on why couldn't I answer such a simple question? And the more I reflected on it, I realized the reason why I couldn't answer her question is because failure is the one thing I'd been avoiding my entire life. I was always making safe choices. I was only really attempting things where I knew there was a high likelihood of success. And so eventually I had to ask myself, what has living so safely done for me? Am I happy? Am I fulfilled? And the answer to all the questions was no. And that's, I think for me, Naveen, that was the first clue, a really strong clue to me that something is off in my life. And unless I start making different choices, I will always regret it. And that's how eventually, that's when the first domino fell, and which eventually led me to leaving Wall Street and moving to India to find what could be my path.
Mhm. Yeah, good one. And Bhavna, again, you have lived in 8 countries, right? So, how did that shape your understanding of leadership, identity, and purpose?
Um, I have to say, living in 8 countries, and the reason why I got to live in 8 different countries, most of them is because growing up, I got to travel around with my family. My father worked as a diplomat with the Indian Foreign Service, and so we would keep getting posted from one country to another. And then, of course, as an adult, I've continued to move either for work or for other reasons. It's been such an honor and privilege to be able to have witnessed 8 different cultures around the world. And if there's one thing that I've observed is that there is more that unites us than that what separates us. In other words, it doesn't matter if you go to the US or you go to India or you go to Singapore, where I am currently. At the heart of it, when you ask fundamental questions like what what is the most effective form of leadership, let's say, the answer you would get is the same in any geography, which is that leadership is most effective when it comes from a place of self-awareness, when it's practiced with empathy and compassion, and when it is guided by purpose. These core elements play a significant role. It doesn't matter where you are. So, yes, there are cultural nuances and differences in the way one might lead in one culture versus another. For example, in Asia, I know we may be a lot more differential, let's say, when it comes to authority. Whereas, let's say, in Western cultures like the US, one may be a lot more, independent minded. So, yes, these small nuances are there, but at the heart of it, the fundamental questions about what it means to live and lead with purpose, you will find it is answered the same way wherever you may go, and that's been my observation, and I'm definitely very, very fortunate to have had this exposure and these lessons that have come from my experiences around the world.
Yeah, excellent. And let's talk about mindfulness now. Um Share with us like some of the misconceptions that people have about mindfulness, especially in high performance environments where targets needs to be achieved so quickly and there is a lot of hustle bustle kind of thing, right?
So, Naveen, thank you for asking me about the misconceptions around mindfulness, because you're right, there are lots of misconceptions around it. And especially in high pressure environments, the common misconception is that somehow mindfulness will slow you down. But one thing I can tell you with complete confidence is that um, mindfulness doesn't dull ambition, it fuels ambition. Because when you infuse that much more meaning and that much more purpose into everything that you are doing, by definition, you are going to be that much more focused. You're going to be that much more energized. So, what I have found, especially doing this work over the last 10 years, is because my work is so consciously aligned uh, with the purpose that I'm looking to express in the world. Uh, Mindfulness is the thing that's not just allowing me to operate with speed, but it has given me such a clear sense of direction that that confidence and that clarity is what then allows me to move forward that much more effectively. So I think that's really the differentiator. It's not just about moving with speed, it's about giving yourself a clear North Star to move towards. And when you have that and then speed that is fueled by meaning and purpose, that is how you move so much more effectively.
Yeah. I think it is one of the most overlooked aspects of living today, right? Mindfulness is
Yeah.
something which is overlooked. Wonderful. And I loved your response to this one as well. And let's keep moving. So, my next one is more about what does it mean to make a conscious choice? And do you think it is difficult in today's world?
A conscious choice, Naveen, is a choice that is made with awareness. A conscious choice is one that is made keeping in mind what is most aligned for you. What are your most important priorities and values, and whether the choices you're making are aligned with that. Um, Now, is it difficult to make a conscious choice in today's world? Yes and no. Yes and no. And I say yes and no because if we're not aware, then yes, it's very easy to just live on autopilot. And we know what happens when you're just moving through life on autopilot. You do feel burnt out. You do feel disconnected. And at some point, you are questioning, where am I even headed? Where is this even taking me? And why is it that I'm checking off one box after another in terms of my career, in terms of going after all the titles and the promotions and the money and all the goals that society has conditioned us to go after? Even after checking off all of those goals, why is it that I still feel so empty? And that can happen. That can happen haven't if we haven't taken the time to really ask ourselves, well, instead of blindly moving through life, going after one goal after another that we assume, that we think we're supposed to go after, if we were to just pause and ask ourselves, but what do I really want? Not what I'm conditioned to want, but what do I really want? What matters most to me? And I think the most beautiful question and the most powerful question we can ask is not just what should I do, but who should I be? Because Naveen, we're just human doings.
Yeah.
We're human beings. And so the most important question we can ask is, who do I want to be? What kind of a person? What kind of a woman, a leader, a mother, or whatever roles you're playing in life? Who do you wish to be? And then to ask yourself, well, are the choices that I'm making allowing me to become the kind of person I want to become, or are they taking me away from the kind of person I want to become? Are my choices coming from a place of fear, or are they coming from a place of love? Are my choices aligned with my values, or are they aligned with society's definition of success and status?
So, Bhavna, you have also done significant amount of work in terms of going through the ancient wisdom and blending it with the current practices, right? So, talk to us about how the ancient wisdom aligns with modern neuroscience when it comes to decision making.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad you're asking me about decision making, Naveen, because especially in today's world, when there's so many challenges coming at us all the time, especially for leaders, the quality of your decisions is everything. And fortunately, this is where ancient wisdom and neuroscience are on the same page. Because if there's one thing that all ancient wisdom traditions speak to, whether it is Stoicism or Buddhism or take any ancient tradition, they all tout the benefits of stillness and how when you make decisions, when you think from that place of calmness, you think more clearly. And we now know from neuroscience, neuroscience confirms this as well, that when you pause, you move from the reactive space in your brain, the amygdala, to the more rational part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, which allows you to make more thoughtful and wiser decisions. So all this to say that if you can incorporate more stillness in your day, whether you're beginning your day with stillness or in the moment as you are going about your day, if you can incorporate even what I like to call micro pauses, conscious pauses, micro moments of just stillness by just as we spoke earlier, just pausing maybe before every meeting or before every phone call, you just take a few deep breaths. That small mindfulness practice alone will allow you to feel more grounded and then make decisions from a place of greater clarity.
Mhm. Good one. And let's talk about Shenomics. So, what differentiates Shenomics from other women centric leadership platforms?
Well, I can speak to the what we do and what makes us unique. One thing we always like to say is we're a combination of inner work and outer work. And what that means, Naveen, is we focus a lot on helping the people who go through our programs, helping women build a strong foundation of inner work or self awareness, because that is, and again, all of the research and science confirms that is the strongest foundation for leadership effectiveness as well. And then once you've done the inner work, on top of that, we do take a very, very practical approach to helping people in our programs really build a whole suite of leadership capabilities that will allow them to move through the outer world with a lot more impact and effectiveness as well. Whether that is speaking with a more powerful voice, uh, building relationships that lead to win-win outcomes, or um, driving more strategic decisions as a leader. So whatever is the work that you're doing in your environment, how can you do that with greater ease, impact, and effectiveness once you have created that strong foundation of self-awareness and alignment for yourself? That is the marriage that we focus on, the blend that we focus on, and we found it supremely effective when you have leaders that are grounded in both that inner work and that outer impact as well.
All right. So, let's move forward. And my next question is about having mentored over 10,000 women. So, I'd like to understand from you, like, what are the most common mindset blocks you have observed among emerging women leaders?
So Naveen, one block that I can definitely speak to, and I would argue it's actually universal. It's not just something that impacts women, but of course, in my work with women, I have definitely seen this, which is We set a very high bar for ourselves. We set a really high standard for ourselves. There is this consciously or unconsciously, we pride ourselves on being a perfectionist. And that very perfectionism then gets in our way, because then we start telling ourselves, oh, I can't share my idea until it is perfect. I can talk about my work until I feel fully ready. And so that in itself, that sense of perfectionism in itself becomes a big blocker and stops us from showing up more fully, more authentically, and stops us from making a bigger impact. So that's definitely a big block that I've seen with myself, and of course with others as well. And one advice that we always emphasize to get over that is another conscious choice that I speak about in my book as well, is to choose courage over confidence. Confidence assumes that you have all the answers, but confidence can only come over time. The first time you're taking on a challenge for the first time, whether you're managing a team of a certain size, you're pitching a new idea, um, by its very definition, by its very nature, because it's the first time you are doing something, your confidence is going to be low. So instead of fixating on that and saying, oh, if I don't have enough confidence, that must mean there's something wrong with me, and allowing that to stop you, why not consciously pick courage instead? Because courage says you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to know why this is important to you. And you just need to know what is the first step to take. That's it. And so with courage, with that clarity of purpose, we take that first step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and then next step. And the more steps we take, confidence catches up and confidence builds over time. But courage is what comes first. And so every step of the way, instead of getting into that, falling into that perfectionism trap, to pick courage and alignment. And when we pick courage and alignment, it breaks that inertia and it allows us to move forward. So I would say, yes, consciously picking courage over confidence is the one thing that really helps you get over that mental block.
Okay. And what does authentic power look like in a leader, and how can one cultivate it?
That's a great question as well, because authenticity is something that comes up so often. I've heard it so many times, people repeatedly saying, especially when the question is posed around, what does a meaningful career look like to you? Or what does a meaningful life look like to you? The answer is always, oh, I want to live a life that feels true to me. Or I want to build a career that feels true to me, that feels authentic. There's so much focus on authentic. But authenticity, I've seen, Naveen, can also be sometimes being misunderstood. We think whatever feels natural to us is what is authentic. And what feels natural to us isn't always what is authentic. Because sometimes what feels natural to us may actually work against us. So, for example, in my work, I see, for example, sometimes people will say, oh, I'm an introvert, so I don't want to put myself out there, or I don't want to be the one to initiate conversations or to reach out to people because that doesn't feel I'm more of an introvert. It feels uncomfortable to me. And you might think in that moment you're making an authentic choice, but I would argue you're not. And here is how you know you are making an authentic choice. To step into your authentic power, you don't just ask, what should I do in this moment? You ask, what would the best version of me do in this moment? What would the wisest version of me do in this moment? And when you ask that question, especially the version of you who is aligned with the values that are most important to you, you realize you will make a different choice. Because let's say if your biggest value is to make a contribution, to make an impact, to be of service to others, then you do whatever it takes to honor that mission and that vision. And then these labels of I'm an introvert, or this feels comfortable to me, or this feels uncomfortable to me, all of that falls to the wayside, and it doesn't matter, because what matters most is what is that North Star for you? What is the ultimate purpose? And so authentic power, we step into our authentic power by reminding ourselves of what is really my big why here. What is the North Star that I'm working towards? And each step of the way asking yourself, what would the best and the wisest version of me do in this situation and in this moment?
Wow. Amazing. And this has been an incredible conversation so far. And it's time for us to add some more excitement and spice up the episode, which means it brings us to the second rapid fire round. If you're ready, let's get started.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I am. Let's go.
Okay, comes my first bullet. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
It would say what is also the tagline, interestingly, of my book, which is that you are always one conscious choice away from the life you want.
So powerful. I love it. And Bhavna, describe yourself in just one word.
Conscious.
What is one thing you unlearned that changed everything?
That we don't have to define our self-worth by our achievements. We already are worthy.
And most mindful place you have ever visited?
Actually, just recently, last year, I went to Japan, to the city of Kyoto, and that place has such a beautiful spiritual vibe and energy to it. For me, it's one of the most mindful places I've visited.
All right. A leadership lesson you learned the hard way.
That it's not always about being right. What's more important is to be kind.
And what's one quote you live by?
Something that Gandhi actually had once said, which is, my life is my message.
Life is my message. And again, a powerful one. And one decision you have made purely on intuition.
Leaving Wall Street.
Okay, comes the last one for the second rapid fire round. If you had just 30 seconds to address the world, what would you say?
I would say right now, pause, breathe, and simply ask yourself if the next choice that you are about to make is fully aligned with what you most value. If it is, great, go forth with all the enthusiasm in the world. If not, no problem. You always have an opportunity to begin again, and to begin again more consciously and intentionally.
No, wait. And after that amazing second rapid fire, let's flip back to the mainstream. And the Bhavana, with AI, burnout, and hustle culture on the rise, how can leaders consciously slow down without losing their edge?
I think first of all, I would say the very act of slowing down in and of itself is that choice is the most powerful choice any of us can make. Because like you said, Naveen, when things around us are moving at breakneck speed, especially with AI in the mix, things are moving so rapidly. The way we find our competitive edge, our human edge, is by slowing down. In fact, a few days ago, I'd read this wonderful quote that clarifies this point. In a world where AI is becoming more human, humans need to become more human. And to that point, we all have to just pause and ask ourselves, how can we connect with the most human parts of ourselves? And that requires stillness. It requires slowing down. And to what we discussed earlier, Naveen, that could be beginning your day with just a few moments of stillness instead of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning. If we can begin with just taking a few deep breaths and just asking yourself just one question. What is the kind of day I would like to create today? If I could create my day with intention, how would I want this day to go? Even that simple question will then ensure that all of the subsequent choices that you make later in your day will be coming from a place of thoughtfulness and awareness. So whether it's in the morning or, as I said, at several points in the day, to just pause again, just for a few moments, that micro pause, that conscious pause. It could just be a few seconds before every meeting, before every conversation, just a few deep breaths, and it will allow you to make more thoughtful choices and live and lead from a place of greater awareness.
Excellent. And Bhavna, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and it was an enlightening episode, and I'm sure it is going to add a lot of value to our community. Thank you so much for being on the show. And how is your experience being hosted on The Guiding Voice?
It's been incredible, and I didn't get to ask you, Naveen. What is your guiding voice?
Okay, so it's my own inner voice. It's all about creating that particular impact across the world, no matter where you come from, right? It is all about how to create a legacy for yourself by adding value to the community, right? So my inner voice always guides me whether I am in the right direction, not in the right direction, if some course correction needs to be done and all. And I constantly retrospect on regular basis and make sure that I'm on the right path in terms of achieving that greatness.
Beautiful, beautiful, great.
Thank you.
Yes, and it definitely shows in your work and the clarity of thought and the kinds of questions that you've asked me today. So thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for asking me. And no one has asked me during this interview.
Ah, I'm glad I'm the first one.
You're the first one asking that specific question. All right. So thank you once again. And I'm sure we have to do many more episodes in future. And I wish you all the best on your new book. And also, I wish the team Shenomics all the best in everything that you guys do. So more power to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if in the end, if I could just invite everybody who's listening, if you were intrigued by the kind of ideas that we discussed today and would like to learn more, please feel free to go to shenomics.com /choice to learn more about the book, The Conscious Choice, where I dive into 100 more ideas for living and leading mindfully. And I do hope that work would be of service to each of you.
Excellent. Also, folks, you will find link to Bhavna's LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and feel free to follow or connect with her. All right. So that was our episode with Bhavna Toor. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. In case if you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, request you to share with at least 2 of your friends or colleagues or family members who would also like TGV, the guiding voice, so spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. All right. Now it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment of today's episode. Having interviewed Bhavna Toor, who is the founder of Shenomics, okay, which is a women-centric leadership platform, I thought I would present you 3 lesser-known and thought-provoking facts about the origins of women-centric leadership platforms. The first women's leadership school dates back to ancient Egypt. While modern platforms are recent, the idea of cultivating women leaders is not new. Queen Hatshepsut, Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, one of the earliest known female pharaohs, around 1478 BCE, she established institutions to train priestesses and female advisors, an early form of women's leadership training rooted in spiritual and political power. And these schools emphasized intuition, healing arts, and governance. Second fact is the United Nations first global conference on women sparked the rise of leadership networks. The 1975 United Nations World Conference on Women in Mexico City was a turning point. It not only catalyzed the global women's rights movement, but also led to the creation of grassroots leadership circles and networks across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. and many of which later formalized into platforms, fellowship, and also think tanks. Third fact is that women centric leadership was born from peace building, not a corporate ambition. In post conflict zones like Rwanda and Liberia, women stepped into leadership organically to rebuild communities. Their success in driving reconciliation and policy change inspired global frameworks for nurturing empathetic, inclusive, and community first leadership styles. These efforts later shaped the leadership platforms focused on collaboration over hierarchy and a departure from the traditional male dominated models. So this is all from the trivia perspective. Likewise, if you are aware of any women-centric leadership platform, do let me know. Or if you have come across any role model like Bhavna Toor, do let us know about that inspiring story. And that's it for today, folks. And thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.